So today I want to talk you through this journey, which is already taking for about 3 years almost. And let me just start without any further delay. So we've got quite a nice introduction, thanks to Catherine and playing her the video on the clinical trials. So I don't think it's too important to spend much more time with that, but it's a very important area of any pharmaceutical company, is the drug development and drug discovery, and quite much money spent in this area and effort. So when I turn back time and go back 3 years, the business problem which really triggered this exercise was that the clinical studies were sort of driven reactively to the events, and the clinical trial directors were maintaining their records in Excel spreadsheets. There was a lot of back and forth between the various moving parts, and all that was needed by that time was to increase the efficiency and lower the cost. So there was an idea already of the business team before they approached the design team. They had an idea of a controlling tower, which would allow anyone in the company to look at the same source of truth and to also predict the future of the clinical trials, so that we actually can see what would likely happen in the future and can identify those risks and take preventive actions to avoid those risks in the future. So that was a bit of the design brief we've got 3 years ago when we started on this project. And I think one of the ideas of this workshop or of this presentation today is that we want you to split in teams, which Catherine is organizing, and we want to hear from you what would be kind of the first step which you would take, or what would you actually do if you were me or the design team by that time. How would you approach this challenge if you were the designer?
So we'll go out into breakout rooms. And Vlad, could you just recap the core question again?
Sure. So the core question is, based on this introduction, based on this business need, which was to increase the efficiency and lower the cost of the clinical trials through the predictive capability, which is already a little bit of an idea. And here is a big idea that they already foreseen this controlling center as the solution. But what would you do as a designer if you actually have to take this challenge? What would be your first step? How would you approach this challenge from the design team perspective or from the designer's perspective? So based on the what I learned at Stanford was kind of looking for the why in the human behavior. So empathy was the key. As the first step of the journey, we basically identified in the very beginning around 15 users to start with, which have been interviewed upfront before we started any ideation. So as you can see in one of my favorites visualizations, we started with the empathy with the user. In total, we interviewed, after all, around 67 associates from the drug development ecosystem. And this drug development ecosystem is huge, right? It's like tens of layers of various roles, and it's just immensely complex. But what really stood out of all these interviews was the motivation, and we used as an inspiration one of the interviews, which I want to share with you a transcript of. And here again, these are some of the questions I learned from you guys at Stanford, to ask the user to explore the high points and low points. So here I asked one of the users, one of the clinical trial directors, if he can share with me a time, what happened when he felt really good about these clinical trials, if he can share a story with me. And he shared, it was a person in India, his name is Parijat, and he shared with me this story. I cannot forget his name, that he felt really good when his colleague got awarded and recognized for an invention of a smart diaper, which helps to diagnose symptoms of a certain disease, which happens to babies early on in their life, so it gives them a chance to live. And as I was instructed from Stanford instructors to always ask the why questions, I asked the why question, and it became apparent that the motivation is a bit beyond the thinking, so it's in the emotion. And we established this point of view again, a concept from you guys, this point of view, and how might we question again, coming from d.school. So as a clinical trial director, I need to be able to help patients because I'm feeling compassionate, and then we used the way how to amplify the good to sort of create the how might we question. So we amplified the good, the compassion, in a way that how might we inspire our associates so they feel great about their purpose. And it was maybe quite straightforward to me, but difficult to understand for the others. Choosing the ENSO wheel as the basic symbolism, which could symbolize compassion, and I will get to it in the next 3 slides, where I will explain it a little bit deeper. But I also wanted to talk you through how we actually generated some of the other ideas. So we designed multiple options. These are just 3 of them, but we also had an idea of a kind of a almost like a tree with branches and leaves, which didn't make it through to the high fidelity. But we had multiple ideas generated in a workshop which took place in Basel, and we had some ideas to choose from, but ultimately this idea of the wheel, which you can see in the right hand side, which has all the clinical trials in it, and displays starting from the center to the side the prediction for the future of those trials and how these trials are likely or not likely to achieve certain milestones. But what I wanted to talk about really is the concept, the philosophical concept of the wheel, which I mentioned in the center. It's symbolizes kind of the why. It symbolizes the what they call in Hindu philosophy the shunyata, the emptiness, which in this case is a kind of a metaphor to compassion, being inspired by the Prajna Paramita Sutra, the Heart Sutra, which is one of the foundations of the whole culture, I would say, or of our civilization. Then the second principle is this samsara, which is kind of the principle of death and rebirth, which we go round and round through until we achieve moksha, which is another Hindu principle, the principle of enlightenment, or being one with the Tao, or Satori in the Japanese culture, kind of being one, or the realization of the ultimate truth of the oneness with the absolute principle. And here I would like to borrow one of the quotes of one of the most famous ex-employees of the Sandoz laboratories, which is now part of Novartis in Basel, Albert Hoffmann, when the transmitter and receiver finally become one. So with this, I would like to show you the final result, which is this controlling center, this room. As you can see, the wheel plays a major role in the design. It's not just the center, it's also, we have two centers, but it's also an application itself, which anybody can open on their computers. It also works on iPads, so it's accessible to all the employees. I also wanted to talk about some figures. We have done quite some empathy work, around 70 hours, more than 30 prioritization sessions throughout the years. A lot of ideation, because it's not just the wheel we ideated on, it's all the functionality, which is quite complex, as the environment is complex. And it took us 3 years, and we did not forget the usability as well. So I guess what I want to share with you next is what really is the value to the organization of the design, how design actually impacted the business. And this may seem like not like hard figures, right? But in the end, it inspired the organization through this symbolism, especially in the drug development space, which led to quite early and high adoption in the global drug development space, which is the user focus. That's the user base we build it for. So most of the users, they love it. And it serves as a kind of almost like a pioneering or iconic lighthouse, which really triggered the company's digital transformation journey, almost like a signal to the company, which I think was great. It was communicated outside of the company, which very rarely happens, or very rarely happened 3 years ago, or 2 years ago, when this was first published. And that was also the valuable outcome. So as you can see, it is an important project which was celebrated by the company, and our CEO Vas Narasimhan also presented it and thanked to all of us who participated on it. As I mentioned, it was covered by the media, by the Swiss TV and Bloomberg. And as I mentioned, our CEO Vas loves it, and Badri, who is almost like the second, or I mean, he's the boss of the head drug development operations, also likes it very much. And to close, I would like to share what I actually learned at Stanford from the Innovation and Entrepreneurship program. And it really helped me in 3 key simple points. Be your true self, with the capital S, as explained in the symbolism of the wheel, and think for yourself, question everything, don't believe to dogmas, and always be a beginner, which is a bit of an analogy to the thinking like a child and things like that. All this knowledge gained at Stanford helped me to foster these 3 elements.